EB Awareness Week, and I have a treat today. I'm going to be talking to Jodie Gillion from Abeona Therapeutics about EB-101. And without further ado, let's get started. Hello and welcome to Butterfly Talk. This is the EB Awareness Week / Halloween episode. Not that, Halloween it doesn't really go with EB awareness. However, the one thing about EB awareness and Halloween have in common is mummies, right? We see all these kids dressed like mummies, and unfortunately, kids with EB, at least those with their more severe forms, I guess, have to wear bandages, and so that's how it is. Now, before we get started, I wanted to show you my mug and my shirt of the day, right? My mug is a Halloweeny mug, witch's brew. That's right. For many years, I wore a witch's costume, so it's just perfect, right? And then my shirt of the day is this one. Faith, hope, and love are all greater than EB awareness. I actually made this shirt several years ago for a fundraiser that I was doing for Nikki, and so I appreciate all those that bought the shirt because they helped fund the trip to Italy for Nikki to see his grandparents. My parents are we're getting up there. I'm so lucky they're still with us. My dad's gonna be 90. In December, and so I wish I could go. I wanted to go this year and visit them, but COVID, just decided that wasn't going to happen. So there you go. So today I'm excited because I have a special guest, and we're going to do a little Skype session as soon as I'm finished with this intro. Her name is Jodie Gillon, and she is the VP of Patient Advocacy and Clinical Affairs for Abeona Therapeutics and EB-101. So let's get started. Let me show you our interview. Hello, Jodie. Welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks so much for having me.
Oh, sure. So tell us all about Abeona Therapeutics.
Sure. Abeona is a cell and gene therapy company, and we harness the power of genetic medicine to transform the lives of patients. We work on some really devastating diseases. Epidermolysis Bullosa is our lead candidate, so we're in phase 3. And then we have 2 phase 1/2 programs in San Filippo, A and B. And then we have a whole bunch of preclinical programs as well. We are based out of New York City. That was my home office. I miss it very much. And then the majority of our staff's in Cleveland, Ohio, and that's where we actually produce our own gene therapy. We have a manufacturing facility. And then we have 5 amazing colleagues in Madrid, Spain.
Oh, wow. So is that the only place in Europe where you're at?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Which is great because they cover all of Europe. So when I was traveling, I didn't have to go over all the time. So.
All right, so tell us about yourself and what's your role and how did you end up at Abeona? Is that how you pronounce it, Abeona?
Yes, correct. Yeah. Okay. So I'm the Vice President of Patient Advocacy and what they call clinical affairs. It's kind of this kitchen sink role. I do things like sponsorships and medical information, congresses and meetings, medical communications. And I feel very, very fortunate to have found this. I actually was calling the position my unicorn. So if I could have dreamt up a company, disease areas, people, location, all of it, this was it. I started my career a long time ago, like 20 something years ago. I actually worked in advocacy, in HIV advocacy in Israel. So it was one of the first advocacy groups in the country, and I'm very glad to have had that experience in an advocacy group to kind of leverage that experience now being on the other side, but still doing similar things and collaborating. I'm an epidemiologist by training, which is very helpful, and I've been jumped around all different disease areas, a lot of different roles in big and small companies. So I spent a lot of years at Novartis, Pfizer, AstraZeneca, but my sweet spot is biotech, and I chose rare diseases about 6 years ago, and I can never look back at this stage.
What motivates you?
Oh gosh, doesn't take much. I think what originally motivated me to rare diseases was working on compassionate use. So AstraZeneca became an oncology-focused company pretty much overnight from a primary care company, and I had to pull together compassionate use for the company. And then I got to serve as the industry representative to the FDA when they changed their policy in compassionate use. And ironically, most of the requests came from rare disease patients and advocates and caregivers, which probably doesn't surprise you. But I think what really motivated me wasn't just that the number of requests, it was their journey and all the onus that was on them, that they had to thoroughly understand our preclinical and early stage programs and understand that mechanism of action and learn all about these products and then find me and make this request. And that was probably after a 5 to 7 year diagnostic odyssey. So for me, there was such an unmet need that I decided I needed to work in rare. And I think what motivates me at Abeona, it's definitely engaging not just with the patients, but the caregivers. I have the privilege of sometimes delivering good news, and that's always a great day. But I think what sticks with me is when I have to deliver unfortunate news. And I think especially, hearing a voice, seeing a face, and delivering that news, it's something that I don't want to ever have to do. So I'd love to get to a stage where I can always see a smile and hope and not, that soul crushing experience of a parent.
Yeah, I understand that. So tell us about EB-101. What is it?
Sure. So EB-101 is our lead candidate, and it's for recessive dystrophic epidermolysis bullosa. It's an autologous gene therapy. So what that means is essentially we take skin cells from the patient. There are 2 punch biopsies taken from healthy skin on a patient. And then actually those biopsies and those skin cells are transduced with gene therapy and then turned into skin grafts. So they're turned into 6 almost business card size sheets that are then transplanted on wounds. We tend to treat the largest wounds that are open for quite a long time. So, even in our phase 1/2 trial, one wound was open for 20 years, actually. And then also we can treat up to 240 centimeters squared, given those 6 sheets in the trials. So it takes about 28 days to produce from the biopsies until the skin grafts are delivered. And currently our site is at Stanford University, and our principal investigator is Jean Tang. So the team at Stanford has been doing these transplants. And we have really great data from phase 1/2. So there's a publication in JCI over a year ago that anyone can access. It's open access online. If you just Google JCI, Jean Tang, it will come up. And currently our phase 3 studies enrolling, and 3 patients have been treated to date.
Wow. How many patients you said? 33?
3 patients have been treated to date. So we're aiming to enroll 10 to 15, and so far we've treated 3. So there was a bit of a slowdown due to COVID.
Oh, right. No, Nikki was he was one of the original 6, I want to say. He did it just after he turned 18. And he did 3 skin grafts on one arm and 3 skin grafts on the other one. And now he had a reaction to it that was something that the doctors never saw in any other patient. I mean, when I say Nick, he's unique. He's unique. I guess antibodies started attacking the collagen that he was producing. So that's sad. But Nikki still is happy that he did it because it closed wounds on this arm right here, had this weird looking wound, and it healed it all up, and it had been there for years and years and years. So he was still happy he did it because it closed up some wounds that are nasty. So do you know anything about is there anything that Abeona can do to, Nikki's problem for those that might have an antibody issue with it?
Yeah, so I mean, that would be a question for Dr. Tang.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I know she said that there was a patient after Nikki, knowing that she had antibodies, that she was able to put something cream on it. And so she was happy that she did it. But I talked to a couple of patients at the EB fundraisers last year, and they were really happy with their skin grafts. One of them, I'm not going to say names or anything, because I can't, I don't think. But one of them said, now I can walk because of the skin grafts, and I couldn't walk before. And another one said it made the whole difference in the world. I mean, it just completely changed her life. So that's, okay, so they didn't help Nikki, but they helped so many people. And just, I'm very grateful. Because
very happy to hear that. Yeah, no, I think this community deserves as many options as possible. It's been underserved for so long. So the more that are looking at this disease, the better. And I know in patient surveys, there's a huge interest in being retreated. So I think that's a big question mark for the future. Not possible yet in the clinical trial environment, but maybe one day.
So when do you think EB-101 will be approved by the FDA?
Yeah, so I mean, if you asked me before COVID, our aim was to launch, the middle of next year. 2022, sorry, the middle of 2022. My brain's already in 2021.
I know.
Hoping to fast forward as quickly as possible to get through this.
I was telling my son, we need to go do something amazing New Year's Eve because I want to kick this year. It's like just a boot.
Just started some serious hibernation now that rates are up. So yeah, but I think, COVID understandably could potentially slow things down. So the sooner that we're able to enroll the study, the sooner we can submit, and the sooner hopefully we'll have, a positive outcome and we can get this
Great.
product
So
to everyone.
I will put below the video, we'll put a link to where you can get more info to enroll in the study. How's that?
Great.
Okay.
All the info, put my info. Absolutely.
Yes, I'll put everything. So let me see, next question. When and where will Abeona commercialize EB-101?
So first is the US. Our trial's focused in the US, and also it's pretty unique because the biopsies are sent to Cleveland and then the grafts are delivered to Stanford. So, right now our manufacturing can serve the US, which wouldn't be a pathway to anywhere else in the world. We'd have to, look at different regulatory pathways and different development options elsewhere. The good news, though, is that there is interest in the trial from ex-US, and Stanford is having those conversations and assessing feasibility for patients outside the US to participate in the study.
So is Stanford the only place right now where they're doing this?
Currently, the only site, correct. Okay. We are looking to have a site on the East Coast because it would just be easier for patients, especially East Coast patients, not to travel to the West Coast.
Right. I mean, for us, it was easy because we were California. We live in California, so it was easy for us. And as soon as Nikki was 18, Nikki's always been very open to, let's try anything. This poor kid. But anyway, does Abeona cover travel, support, for vital TM study participants?
Yes, so everything's covered. The patient and the family should incur no cost to participate in the study. Obviously, participation is covered, as is standard bandaging while on site, but all travel is covered. And there are a lot of conversations happening around COVID and making sure that not just the patient, but the caregiver and the family are comfortable with how they'd be traveling. So if it's by plane because they're coming from across the country, then maybe that's, a first class seat with more empty rows, so there's no one around. Also, Stanford is providing hotels in very close proximity. So either within walking distance or under 10 minutes driving. And also even then, the family could choose, do they want to rent their own car? Do they want one driver who's masked, so they're only exposed to that one person who's picking them up and shuttling them to and from the site? So, a lot of thoughts going into this, a lot of conversations directly with the families to see what their comfort level is, but no cost should be incurred. And actually, they'll receive a prepaid card for their incidentals while they're in California, so meals and transport and things.
Wonderful. And that goes to the next question. What are the precautions taken during COVID?
Anything and everything. What's really nice about Stanford actually is they have this new building where this gene therapy is being administered. And this new building, isn't part of the main hospital where you have, COVID patients. So that's something that's incredible in and of itself. And then, of course, the staff at Stanford in this building, they're constantly being tested and wearing all protective gear. The patient, the family will be tested, while on site. And then, of course, all the travel arrangements are being made. So every precaution that can be made is being made.
That's awesome. So is standard care provided in the vital study?
Yes. So standard wound care is provided, especially, on visits where they have to undress the patient and then redress the patient. All the bandages will be provided.
Okay, great. Now, can EB-101 be used for other forms of EB, such as simplex or junctional, or I think there's the Dolan-Mara one?
So currently, we're only studying RDEB. I know that Jean Tang, we just did an EBRP webinar, and she said herself it's a question mark, and she's interested to know if it would work. But currently, Abeona is only studying EB-101 in RDEB.
Okay. Now, is it because recessive dystrophic? What about dominant dystrophic? Would that work with dominant dystrophic?
So I can't answer whether or not it would work. I can only say we're only studying EB-101 and RDEB. So we can only potentially answer if it will work or not in RDEB, because that's the only question and study that we've posed.
Is it because of the way the gene, the way it's transferred, the collagen?
So collagen 7, yes,
Right.
being transduced into the keratinocyte sheet. So could it potentially, we just don't know. It was something that would need to be studied, and, currently there's no plan for such studies.
Now, it's interesting to me, and I know this is not part of our questions, but it's interesting to me because I was told that dominant forms of EB, like simplex and like dominant dystrophic, the approach to curing them would be different than the recessive forms of EB, such as recessive dystrophic or junctional. Do you find that to be true as well?
Well, they are different subtypes. Yeah, so they would need a different pronged approach.
And I think that's, the trap that we get into, EB is just an umbrella word, there's all, because doctors I think it was 130 years ago where the word epidermolysis bullosa first came into, was written in a book, in a medical book. And at the time, they really didn't know much about, the conditions. And so if you blister, okay, that's epidermolysis bullosa. But that's like encompassing all the forms where you get a rash, and in any form, they're all so different and caused by so many different things. You find a cure for one, and not necessarily going to be a cure for another form, and it's true for any condition that are similar but different.
Yeah, I mean, the nature of the beast of drug development is you start in one indication and you really want to focus on those studies and getting approval and launch. And then you have to think, about the mechanism of action and what other indications potentially could this therapy work for and in what form. And, but then do further studies to assess that.
Yeah. Yeah. So, what is the age range to participate in the trial?
6+.
Oh,
Yeah, so went younger this time.
Yeah, it used to be when Nikki, because we had to wait until Nikki turned 18 to do it. So that's awesome.
Yes. So it was 18 in the phase 1, 2, and phase 3 is 6 and older. And the other main inclusion criteria is having matched wounds 20 centimeters squared. So actually the patient is their own control. So EB-101 will be transduced on certain wounds and compared to untreated wounds within the same patient.
Right. Okay. Can internal wounds, such as the mouth and throat, be treated as well?
Unfortunately not.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
Externally. I know. I wish there was some cure-all that could just heal.
Yeah, I mean, Nikki, by the time he was, I want to say 2, maybe, or even younger, his tongue got webbed to the bottom of his mouth, and also he has no gum space at all, and so that's why he started, just there was a lot of saliva that used to come out. He couldn't really, because normally we kind of like go around with the tongue, and but he can't do that, and so I had a doctor, an ear, nose, and throat doctor, telling me, well, we could go in and do surgery and cut it. And I'm like, okay, but it's going to re-heal closed, right? So what's the point of that? Why torture him? If it's going to re-close, how are you going to bandage that to make sure it doesn't heal back attached, And that's probably one of the most, the fact that it affects the outside and the inside. And the inside, it's hard to treat. So if an EB patient wants to be treated completely using this method of the skin grafts, do they have to do a skin press done on the entire body? I mean, how does that work?
Yeah, so currently as part of the trial, there's up to 6 sheets that could be transplanted on a patient. So the maximum area would be 240 centimeters squared. I know at Stanford on a previous patient, they were able to cover the majority of a patient's back by separating out the sheets, but certainly 6 sheets isn't going to cover a patient's entire body. And certainly as part of the clinical trial, we haven't yet retreated a patient. That's a question mark and, potential plan for the future. So if a patient can be retreated, that's an interesting question because then you can cover more surface area. And so far, we've had really good results on the wounds staying closed many years out. So if the wounds that are treated stay closed and potentially at some point in time, we can look into retreatment, more areas would be treated.
Now, one child in Germany that was treated his whole body, was that
That was not through us.
Okay.
My understanding is that was a stem cell transplant.
Okay. All right. Because
a different type of EB actually. That was not.
Yeah.
That was junctional. So, but a very interesting case to look at.
Do you know if they did anything else with that? Have they treated other patients or anything like that? Do you know?
I haven't seen anything in the literature. Nothing published, and I haven't heard anything.
Yeah. All right. Let me see. So go ahead. I'll put all the information underneath your link, your where to start and everything. And is there anything else that we can look forward to?
Yeah, so it's funny because when you were talking and before you asked me what motivates me, and then you were talking about Nikki and his issues, especially, with oral issues and the internal wounds. And, something that I think about in these disease areas that motivates me every day, it's the decisions that the caregivers have to make. It's these benefit risk equations that no parent should have to face, that these parents have to face day
Yeah.
in and day out in those types of decisions. So
Yeah.
it's incredibly motivating. You guys, are my inspiration. And, it's been a hard year. It's hard not to be together during EB Awareness Week. There's usually so many events through Deborah, EBRP virtual events across the pond. And I'm just so grateful that you invited me on. So in some way we can honor EB Awareness Week
Yeah.
together. Thank you.
Well, thank you for coming, and I appreciate all your motivation to help EB patients because, this is, they call it the worst disease, which I know a lot of people have a problem with the word disease, but it's the worst disorder you never heard of. And that's very true. And that's why we need awareness, because awareness leads to funding, funding leads to research, research leads to a cure. And EB, if there's any condition that needs a cure, is EB for sure. For sure,
Well, there
100.
are a lot of trials now. There's a lot of hope, a lot of phase 3 trials, which is the last phase. So, my hope is that, patients have options
Yeah,
soon. So,
yeah, I hope so. Well, thank you so much for joining
thank
me,
you.
and I have a happy rest of the week.
Take care. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Okay. Hello. So I hope you enjoyed the interview. And this is about EB-101, which is the skin grafts. Just to summarize, they take a biopsy on, this is just for patients with recessive dystrophic, but they take 2 biopsies from a healthy area of the skin, and they send them off and they inject the correct gene to make them healthy skin and not EB skin anymore. They grow areas that are about, like a business card size. I don't have a business card here anywhere. I do not. I have business cards for all kinds of things, but not that. Anyway, and then what they do, they put them on whatever area of the skin and it heals it. When Nikki was part of this trial when he turned 18, so that was in 2016, I want to say. No. 2015. Yeah, early 2015. So that was 5 years ago, almost 6 years ago, because it was January. And he got 3 on one arm and 3 on the other arm. And it took about just a few weeks to heal, maybe 3 weeks. And they healed really good. You couldn't even tell where the skin graft started and where the regular skin, But Nikki could tell the difference right away. Mama, it just feels different, feels normal, feels strong. That's what he told me. Unfortunately, pretty soon antibodies started attacking it. But I want everybody to know that's not a normal thing that happens with this. And they can test you for it now, though. Because of Nikki, they were able to modify it and test it. And if you are positive for antibodies for the collagen type 7, then they can take precautions for it. They can still do it. They put anti something cream on it so it doesn't reject it. Nikki's decided not to redo it, but he's kind of like anything with Nikki. I told them, you don't have to say no, never again. You can say, not now. Maybe I can change my mind later, because Nikki has come to the point where he doesn't like biopsies, and so he doesn't want to do them anymore unless he has to. And so right now, Nikki's wounds are not too bad. The skin grafts, while they worked but didn't work sort of thing, um, they healed areas that hadn't been healed in a long time. And right now, because of the CBD oil, his wounds are not too bad. The only problem with Nikki right now is just he's just weak. His skin is just really, really fragile. He's just not, I don't even know how to explain it. As a matter of fact, last year I wrote a post on Facebook and I wrote, Nikki is so much more fragile than he used to be. The wound mass is not much worse than usual, although it's better now than it was a year ago because of the CBD oil, right? It's just a simple act of me sitting on his bed to give me his meds makes him yelp. It's even when I'm driving and I go through, it doesn't even have to be a speed bump. It could be just a little beady boop, and he just yelps. He's just so, I don't even know how to explain it. It's just the fragility of this child just blows me away. And as a carer, it's really hard to take care of somebody that you can barely touch. Especially since I have to change bandages, and his dad understands that. Right now, this past few days, Nikki's been with his dad. But other than that, I also wanted to acknowledge that I make Nikki take as many decisions about his health as humanly possible. By the time he could understand, by the time he was 2, I would introduce, okay, we're gonna do this. If I knew that something that we had to do, we would just do it, right? Okay, it's not like I could give him a choice. We have to do this throat dilatation, or I gotta put you this G tube because you're not gaining weight. You haven't gained weight in 2 years. That was not a choice, but at least I tried to talk to him and make him understand. But by the time he was 6, he was completely in control, because I remember him asking me for a hand surgery. And I knew how bad the other 2 surgery were. I mean, they worked, and we were wrapping so that to keep it longer. But like I wrote about it in the book, it was just really, really hard for me. And so I'm like, are you sure? And I tried to explain everything that went on with it. And so he said, I am sure. And so we did it. Even when the bone marrow transplants came around about 10 years ago, 11 years ago, I took him, this was 2010 as a matter of fact, I took him to Minnesota so he could talk, so we could talk to the doctors there, and because I wanted him to make the decision of what to do. Of course, he decided against it, which is fine. I said, look, you don't have to say no forever. It could be not for now, and he still hasn't changed his mind. So I try to keep him in the loop as much as possible. He just wants to play video games all day long, and so I just let him, because I know that's his good place. His happy place is playing video games. And so that's what we do. So that's it for today. I'm sorry for being so long today, but if you want to be a guest on my show, I want to talk about maybe your son or daughter with EB, or if you have EB and you want to talk about something in particular, you're more than welcome to contact me. My email address is ebmomma@gmail.com, ebmomma@gmail.com, and let me know what you think. In the meantime, subscribe so you know when new episodes are up. I am going to do, my next episode will be sometime next month, late next month in November. I'm making a list of all my favorite movies that involve special needs parenting. Special need parenting, and I'm going to do a countdown of my favorite movies. So look forward to that, because I'm going to work really hard in finding the best that I could find that are inspirational, that help us, that we could relate to, because that's hugely important. So thank you so much for watching, and until next time, ciao.